Hello YouTube, our topic for the hypertrophy series today is going to be in direct relation with the video about the Smolov program. The reason is, during that video I discussed the fact that Smolov is going to put size on your legs, but the issue is that you're going to have to pay for it somewhere because you're going to have to invest so much tonnage into that one method that the rest of the program is almost certain to suffer. And if you want global development, that type of strategy is not the best because you're going to suffer from massive tonnage decrease after some time once the program is done and you're not running it anyway. And the body parts that you neglected during that time need to catch up now, while at the same time, the ones that were developed during the short period of time where you increased tonnage a lot might regress because they're not getting the stimulus that they used to. This is why I always promote stability. So as far as lower body goes, I want to give you some pointers about volume, intensity, and how you should manipulate all of that to make sure that you get big legs, but that they also stay manageable and sustainable. The issue with leg training, for the most part, is that it's going to be taxing for many reasons. It's going to be taxing because you're going to rely a lot on your lower back for a lot of lifts that are the best for leg hypertrophy. So for example, squat, deadlift, they're great because you can move a lot of weight, you can really tire that lower body, but it takes its toll. I am personally an advocate of perfect form at all times. I always tell you to repeat the same technique for every single rep, and that if your form fails, if you experience mechanical failure, then you did something wrong. But even with that, even with perfect form, quote unquote, you can still experience overuse injury and over time damage your ability to accumulate tonnage. And that is going to be directly correlated with intensity and volume manipulation. Even with the best form in the world, if these are not taken into consideration, you're going to fail. And the reason why is they need to be understood for recovery to be planified the right way. I always tell you to work your legs as much as you can, meaning that doing a leg day once a week is terrible advice, and for naturals it's not a good way to get big legs. But you also cannot fall into the complete opposite and say, okay, I'm going to work my legs every single day. It also doesn't work. You need to find a balance. And the balance is going to also, as I said, depend entirely on the volume you apply. For me, I work my legs every 2 days, but I don't always work them hard and heavy. Sometimes I will do heavy squats, heavy deadlifts, but sometimes I will also pick variations that are less taxing, that I'm going to be doing with less weight, with more reps, so that I can give myself a break. That way I'm still working legs, I'm still sending tonnage that way, but I'm not doing it in intensity windows that are super taxing for recovery. And that is something that you also should be embracing, because a lot of people associate leg day or lower body day with excruciating, very taxing sessions. It doesn't have to be like that. When you work your biceps, you don't do that, right? So if you scale it down to what a bicep is compared to a leg, it's a difference of strength and muscle size, but the same principles can be applied. Sometimes you're just going to do some higher reps for your biceps, and that's still going to contribute towards growth. So try and apply the same with legs. A lot of people don't like doing high reps with legs. Why? It's extremely taxing on the cardiovascular system. So if your heart and your lungs don't match the stamina of your muscles, you're going to suffer. But to me, that's a weak point that you need to address, because high reps for legs is a requirement for the most part, meaning that since you move so much weight when you do deadlifts or squats, the logic also tells you that if you can multiply the reps with a high intensity and a lot of weight, you're going to accumulate a lot of tonnage quick. And that's also another thing to keep in mind with lower body. Unlike what most people think about, a leg day shouldn't be 3 hours long. Why? Because you can be so intense and get so much tonnage quick with it that you should use it to compress the amount of time you train, because we want to train as little as possible but do as much as we can within those windows, right? So use that. When I look at a program, when I see a day with heavy deadlifts or heavy squats, those should be the smallest days. Days where you're going to do the most compounds and push them in reps should be the ones where you spend the least amount of time in the gym by default. And yes, you're going to complete those days with other exercises that are going to be more focused on volume and reps because you're going to be tired from all the high intensity movements you did. But it's still not going to create a very long session. So that's something to keep in mind. Use that as a tool. It's something to use to your advantage too, because the amount of fatigue you're going to feel after heavy squats or heavy deadlifts is going to hinder your ability to keep going afterwards. And for me, continuing in the gym when your mental stamina is depleted is not going to be great for your mental health. Sometimes it's needed, but if your physical stamina is depleted, meaning that your muscular endurance is shot, there's really no point. Now you're just, tu brasses de l'air, comme on dit en français. You're pushing baby weight. You're just moving for the sake of moving. You're not doing damage anymore. There's no point. So there's an issue in the program here. You should just go home. You've done what you had to do, and now you go home. And that is going to be true across the board. I personally recommend lower reps for deadlifts and squats. That being said, depending on how comfortable you feel with the lifts, you can manipulate that. For me on deadlifts, I do 2 to 5 reps. That's my window. That's what I do heavy deadlifts in with my style, which is conventional. Why? Because I can always tell if my form is bad, and I know for a fact that I can do it safely. Those two are very important. For squats, I don't feel that way. I will never do 2 reps on squats. I minimum do 4 and I do 4 to 8. Again, that's my window. That's my preference. Your preference could be the other way around. But try and stay within those windows. I've made videos about very high reps, and I explained that the issue with very high reps is that sometimes it's cardiovascular failure or it's mechanical failure that gets you. It's not muscular failure. And this is all the more true for squats and deadlifts because they are so demanding on technique, structural integrity, and your heart and lungs. Because if these fail, then you're not doing anything of importance because the muscles are not getting as recruited and you risk injury. So we want to avoid that. And this is why, for all of these reasons, I give you that protocol for squats and deadlifts and lower body lifts. But just because this exists on one side, remember also that I told you that you should be doing high volume stuff. And logic also dictates that if that's the case, you need to find certain lifts for the high volume stuff where you're not going to suffer mechanical failure. This is where you can push the cardiovascular stamina because you know that it's not going to be dangerous. And I'm just throwing it out there, but certain lifts that are great for that type of training are Romanian deadlifts, pose squats. You can do some box squats without a pose. All of these are interesting, but they might need their own episode of the Hypertrophy series so that we can get into more details. This was more an introduction onto lower body lifts and how you can build those massive, thick legs as a natural. As always, thank you for watching and have a good day.